Professor Abeyratne, thank you so much for taking some time to speak to us. There's been several protests and street agitations with regard to the recent increase and the sudden increase in the price of fuel, electricity and now even other commodities. Is this increase in the cost of living, is it expected or is it unusual?
I think there are certain factors that we cannot control, that is the world market factors actually. In the recent past there has been an increase in the oil prices in the world market, and at least to a certain extent we have to face to that situation. But again, as far as our economic policies and our domestic economic environment, these factors are concerned, I think there is also a domestic element that has contributed to it. I think that is the Petroleum Corporation. This has considered to be the biggest loss-making government enterprise, and there are other enterprises as well. So that there could be some inefficiencies associated with distribution, refinery, and so on. In addition to that, the exchange rate has also become a problem in the recent during the past few weeks. So these are the immediate factors that has caused the increase in the prices. Obviously many other things, production of, as you said, electricity and distribution and many other things depend on the fuel cost, so that their prices would go up definitely.
Okay, so you mentioned world market prices as well. Is the fuel increase, has that been provoked by an increase in the world market price?
I think one of the immediate factors is that the world market increase in the prices in the world market due to the crisis situation in the Middle East, as well as the conflict between US and NATO countries and the Middle Eastern countries, particularly Iran. So given this problem, international problem, I think because we are also dependent more on Iran than any other country to satisfy our fuel requirements, I think that is also it is not wise to depend on one country, and I think it is too late to understand that problem. We have already been dependent for some time on Iran to satisfy our fuel needs. So that these are the external factors which we cannot control.
But the government, opposition parliamentarians as well as other critics have pointed out that it's the mismanagement of the economy by the government that has led to this current predicament or the situation. What do you feel about this? What is your opinion of that?
Well, there is, other than the increase in the fuel prices in the world market, there is substantial truth in it. To my understanding, I think well, the government's initial policy documents, mainly the Mahinda Chintana document, they have outlined beautiful concepts about Sri Lanka's development path and so on, promoting or upgrading our entrepreneurs to conquer the world market, and then converting Sri Lanka to a global hub in many areas. I think that is a must. And so those beautiful concepts are there, but at the level of implementation, I haven't seen substantial policy reforms. Obviously, infrastructure programs have been going very well, but in addition to the infrastructure, there should be substantial steps taken, bold reform process, and that is what I haven't seen actually. And in addition to that, I have seen many reversals of the reform process and inconsistencies and unpredictable elements in our policy direction. So all these things actually have contributed to the present crisis.
Talking about the government's policies before this or some time ago, we've been recently hearing this phrase, forced reinforcement of the rupee value at the expense of reserves. What do economists mean when they say this, and has the government been actually doing this?
Okay, I think this is, let me give you an economic lesson that which we give to our students here in the university. The exchange rate is the price of foreign currency, just like price of any other thing, price of eggs or price of rice. So when there is a shortage of supply of rice, the price of rice should go up. When there is an increase in the supply of rice or vegetables or any other thing, the prices of those commodities should not go up. The same principle applies here as well. There is a supply side of foreign exchange, who supply foreign exchange, anyone who brings dollars to this country or any other foreign currency. There is a demand for that, who actually the individuals or firms or organizations or even the governments, these agencies or people, those who actually buy dollars for their international transaction, for example, to import something, to go abroad, to have education abroad, whatever the way, they want to have foreign exchange. So that's the demand side. So we have supply side and demand side. So when the foreign exchange earnings, foreign exchange receipts do not meet the demand requirement, when they fell short of the demand actually, then the price should go up just like in any other market. So which means actually exchange rate should go up. But there are costs of that. That is what we mean by market determined exchange rate. In the first place, we had the market determined exchange rate in 2002, 3 and 4 as well. I think in 2004 we reversed it. I think in the first place we should not have done that. In the second place, not only we reverse it, we try to manipulate it during the last many years since then. And when all the other countries allowed their currency to depreciate in 2008, 2009 against the global financial crisis, perhaps Sri Lanka is the only country which did not let it depreciate during that period. So we maintain it at that level. That means we did not allow our price of foreign exchange to rise, although we had a shortage of foreign exchange earning. Then actually we could not go with this. But how do we maintain that exchange rate? That's what you said, using the reserves. So when there is a shortage of foreign exchange in the market, the central bank has reserves, foreign exchange reserves, and those foreign exchange reserves are used to meet that shortage in the market. So during the last few months, the central bank had over 8 billion US dollars as reserves, the stock of reserves. Now it has, I think, come down to less than 6 billion. So more than 2 billion has been used to just to defend the exchange rate. So we actually, just like we got those $2 billion and burn it. That's what we had done. So but we can't do this continuously because we have a limited amount of reserves. 8 billion. Now it has come down to less than 6 billion. If we continue with the same policy for another few months, we would have left with no foreign exchange reserves. Okay. So that's why actually the central bank, the government policies also came under IMF pressure to let it go. So then we let the exchange rate to go into the market, and then now the exchange rate is determined in the market, and central bank has reduced its intervention. When it has reduced intervention, now what happens is, because our foreign exchange market is so weak during the last many years, in the past decade actually, our foreign exchange earnings have become weaker and weaker. Our export sector and our FDI, these two sectors should be the most important sectors which provide a stable flow of foreign exchange to the economy. But these two sectors have become very weak. Okay. So whenever in a weak market, whenever there is a supply shortage, you can expect that the price should suddenly shoot up, and that's what has happened now.
Okay, so but now certain groups of people or certain sectors have been are being given, or there's a mechanism to give subsidies to help them cope with this increase in the price of fuel and other commodities. So do you think that that's going to be a burden on the rest of the public?
I think subsidies are quite common in any country in the world, and there are many criticisms against the subsidies, but at the same time it is a necessity. So, for example, subsidies targeting the poor sections of the society and coming under poverty alleviation programs. But nevertheless, if you have these, it has to be very minimal thing. The reason is actually whenever you are going to have too many subsidies in the form of commodities, in the form of subsidizing the prices and so on, the purpose is actually, it does not serve any purpose. The best thing is to let the market to determine these things. For example, fuel prices, the diesel prices, or the petrol prices, or the kerosene prices. We have to look after the poorest sections of the society, and leaving that part aside, we should not intervene here and there everywhere to introduce subsidies. The reason is, in those situations actually what we have seen in this country during the history, what we have seen is that it creates a lot of scope for manipulations and a lot of scope for abuse of those subsidies. Okay. So that's the problem. So that you have to administer them, you have to care about the abuse of them, and then you need to look into those issues, and then in fact it's administrative cost, what we call in economics, the transaction cost of providing subsidies is enormous.
Okay. As one last question, do you think Sri Lanka is facing an economic crisis? And if so, how do you think we are going to recover from it?
I don't think we are having an economic crisis, but I think as far as our expectations are concerned, we have the expectations to become a wonder of Asia and to sustain our high growth rate above 8% per annum. So as far as these are concerned, I think we are not doing that well. We haven't done that well. What we need to know, it is not the fact that we achieve 8% or 10% growth rate in a year or two, which is actually very natural after the war. But what is important is actually to become a wonder of Asia, to sustain higher growth rate over long period of time, 20, 30, 50 years, and if we can do that, we will achieve that wonder of Asia status, but we haven't laid the foundation for that.
Okay. Professor Abeyratne, thanks so much for your time. I think you
My
cleared
pleasure.
up a lot with regard to the economic situation.
Okay.
Current
Thank you very much.